When you look at the accomplishments that you've done over the course of the last few years, what would you say has been the thing that's been the biggest accomplishment for you and your organization over the last few years?
Monetizing the podcast, because up until then it was just an expense, and an expense on equipment and resources and the website hosting, all et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that goes with that. And then an expense on time. I was just investing my time and just helping people to do it until I met a guy named Sean Mize, who convinced me it was time to monetize it. And at first I was hesitant. I was like, I don't know. I think, I don't know. They're going to cut down on the number of interviews I do. But the first week I did it, they were booking. Boom, boom, boom. And we started booking and in case people don't know what I don't charge for the podcast. I know some people, they charge for podcast interviews. I don't do that. I charge for the promotions. If you want a free one, you get a free one, but it's only going to be promoted, once when it's published, and that's it. Then if you want the extended publishing where it can go up to 6 months, those are what people are monetizing. And you get authors that want to keep promoting their books and stuff like that. So that's what they do. And that changed the total dynamics of the podcast. It changed the total dynamics of what I do. And because it gives me resources now to do even more stuff. And that one thing over the past couple of years has changed my perspective on a lot of things. So that one I have to thank you for.
Well, wow. You're welcome. I feel like I'm blushing. I didn't expect that, but wow, that's really cool. And I'll tell you, when I think about that, I think about so many people out there have a message deep inside of themselves that really should get out to the world. And they've got this dream of getting their message out to millions of people. And they really believe, wow, I can just get this out there for free. And I'm going to get 1 million viewers if it'll just go viral. Mm-hmm. The truth of the matter is, there's another 1 million people just like them that think their message is going to go viral, and the algorithm just doesn't work that way.
Correct.
But as soon as you're able to differentiate yourself by having some level of monetization, and I love what you've done. And of course, I don't feel like I take much credit. It was just like a germ of an idea one day, and you ran with it, and we've morphed it. You've morphed it a little bit. Yeah. You ran with it. And, that's just beautiful. If we could take folks that have this amazing thing inside of themselves and they want to put it out there for free, and then they're able to layer a layer of monetization on top of it. Now they have income coming in so that they can, like you said, that it changes from an expense to an income. Yep. And now when they're sitting at their desk, they're sitting at their computer like you and I each are, then they're able to have money coming in, which now means that they actually have some breathing room, they have some flexibility, they have some freedom so that they can go out all the way. Yeah. So that's just beautiful. I'm curious, what percentage of folks are paying for the promotion that goes along with that free interview? What percentage?
85% pay.
85% pay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 85%. But every now and then I'll get someone who's like, well, I don't really have the money to do that. And I'll send them a coupon code to say, but you're just getting the basic promotion. That's it. But I get every day I generate income just passively because I'll get the email. Oh, got another person wants an interview, and I just double check it, make sure there's no conflicts in my schedule, hit approve, and immediately the income is put in my account. And but the whole concept though revolves around interviews, and that's what I've specialized in, is the interviews. And because someone has a product, service, coaching program, book, whatever, and they want to get the word out. And when they see that, our podcast now has, I just checked yesterday, I think it's almost 170,000 downloads. And most of those have come in the last 2 years since we started monetizing. Go figure, the free ones, whatever. But what happens is the people who are paying and it's not expensive, it's not, I'm charging them $5,000 or nothing like that, but they're paying. So when I do a good job on the interview, what do they want to do? They want to share it. I mean, they paid for me sharing it. Now they're going to share it and get the maximum impact they can on their dollars. And what does that do? That drives more traffic to my podcast. That's why our downloads has just skyrocketed in the past 2 years. I figured it was going to go the other way, right? When you first brought that up, but instead it's actually brought more traffic to us, which allowed us to do other things for coaching and stuff like that as well.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of years ago, you were at a place where you were reaching out and asking folks, help me get this right. You were reaching out and asking folks, hey, can I interview you? Correct. And of course, that's a beautiful thing, because for anybody that's watching that wants to get started from scratch, don't wait for the world to come to you. Get out there and knock on the world's door. Do what Bob did. How many podcasts did you do those first couple of years, just reaching out and asking folks?
I think this is our 5th year right now. January starts our 5th year of doing this podcast. The first 2 years, the first year I did, I think 60 interviews, but I was reaching out to people to do it. And there are a couple people that found me. The second year I did close to 100, and I've maintained 100 average, sometimes 120. I think last year was 96. But I also had some things going on where I basically took like 3 months off doing nothing. And, but now only 10% are ones where I'm reaching out to interview somebody. 90% of the interviews I do now, they are finding me. And like I said, out of those 90, the 90% that find me, 85% of those are monetizing. So.
So that's beautiful. To me, that just illustrates the entire journey of starting from scratch and getting to the place where people are coming to you. So you started out the first year, 60 or 70 people you reached out to, said, hey, can I interview you? They said, yes, you did it. The next year, nearly 100. Now, the 5th year in, 90% or so of people are coming to you, and 85% of those people are actually paying you to be able to do that.
That's correct.
That's beautiful. And the big thing that I see when I look at this, and I'm looking at our audience, is people that are saying, look, I've got this message and I want to get it out there and nobody's calling me. And how do I make that happen? So let me ask you this. If somebody came to you, let's say, they paid you for a private session, or they joined your coaching program or something like that, and we've just got a few minutes left, what would be the number one biggest piece of advice that you give them right now that would help them do what you've done, but do it faster?
There's several like lists that they can join, podcast directory lists that they could join. I'm still a member of them. I get people, I've had 2 emails come in today from the list, people asking to interview me, and putting yourself out on that list. When you first hit it, you're the fresh blood in the water, right? Because, some of the people, I've been on there for 4 years now, right? So I don't get that many anymore. But when I first put myself on there, that's when people started calling me, hey, I seen your profile on here and all that. So, those lists are gold, because it gets your names out there and you start booking people like that. And even though I'm monetizing now, I also started a new podcast this year, the Faith-Based Business Podcast, and I'm not charging for that one right now, because you want to provide if you're a new podcast, you want to provide it free to start getting the SEO traffic towards your site and towards your podcast. Like I said, I was doing this for 2 years before, Sean convinced me to try monetizing it. Should have done it an entire year earlier than that. But, once you start getting 25, 30 interviews behind you and under your belt, you kind of smoothed out your processes a little bit. Now it's okay to try and monetize. And that's what I'm doing with this new podcast. We just did interview number 10 today, and we just launched it January 1st. So we've done 10 interviews on it now, 10 episodes. And, it's starting to take traction now. Matter of fact, it's taking real good traction. But the whole concept behind it, though, is go ahead and put it out there free as you start, because you want people to start talking about you. You want the traffic to come in. You don't want them to click, oh, new podcast. Oh, I'm not paying for that. You know, it's new podcast. But once you get the numbers behind you and you can prove it, that's when they'll start coming in.
Mm-hmm. So could somebody do this the way that you're talking right now? Could somebody come in with no audience and really no experience and do what we're talking about right here, what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You interview other entrepreneurs, or like I said, authors. You know, ours is authors, musicians, you know, recording artists, CEOs, nonprofit leaders, etc. That with faith-based people like that. But you bring them in, and then you do a good job on the interview, and that's all in the preparation for the interview. When you interview them, you ask them, can you share the link when I send it to you? And what are they going to, you know, they're trying to get as much traction for their stuff as they can get. So they're using you as part of their advertising promotion, right? So, hey, I was just appeared on this podcast, and they're sending it out to their social media followers. If someone has 10,000 social media followers on Facebook, you're not going to get 10,000 downloads. You might get 50, right? But those 50 are added to your totals, and you do 10 of those interviews. Now you got 500. Now your numbers are looking a little bit better, you know? So after, you know, a couple of months of doing that, you're starting to catch attention. And that's when you can really start getting traction for your podcast, and it starts to take off. But, you know, use that first few months to practice your delivery, practice, you know, your interview, your intros, your closes, and get it down to a process. And once you have that normal process, it's more natural than anything else. But yeah, anybody can do it. Just don't think that you're going to come in on day number 1, episode 1, and say, you know, I want to charge $1,000 to do this interview with you. And they're like, how many listeners you got? Well, none. You're the first one. It's not going to work that way, you know? So don't be afraid to do it. Start free with the idea. As soon as this thing starts getting traction, then it's time to ramp it up a little bit. So I delayed that a long time, but you twisted my arm and it worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so glad it worked. I really am. So what I'm hearing is that anybody could start out from scratch, but they've got to recognize that the first couple of months they're going to have to work hard. They're going to want to go out there and do as many interviews as possible.
Yep.
And if the only thing they get out of it is 2 months worth of practice and being able to be comfortable, like you and I are right here, zero preparation for this call, both of us running late, and being able to flip the switch on, and we're both able to speak on the fly, that somebody's not going to be able to come in and do that from the very beginning, that they're going to need that practice, and that it's okay to get 20, 30, even 50 practice interviews out there that become the podcast. They become your base foundation podcast, and then you're able to build on that. So we've got about 1 minute left. One parting word of advice, 30 seconds.
Don't be afraid to start. You know, you have to start. Otherwise you're going to remain right where you're at, you know. And I've got over on my podcast site, or on the website, podcasters, you can go podcast-training.com. Podcasters for Christ has a link to it anyway. But on that front page, I put, you know, a free book on how to launch a podcast. And then, you know, there's a total of 6 videos I put out there for training. 3 are on how to get you started, and the other 3 are how to conduct great interviews. So those are available for the taking. All I got to do is go and hit it. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes below. But
yeah, absolutely.
All I got to do is get it, and that gets the podcast started and gets the interview started. So,
oh, that's wonderful. So say that domain name again. I don't want to butcher it.
Podcast-training.com.
Excellent. And we'll put that in the show notes below. Folks, I don't do this much. I give my wholehearted stamp of approval for Bob Thibodeau and what he's doing in the world right now with the interviews. And here's the thing, Bob's living it in the real world. This isn't theory. This isn't some made up course by somebody that's done it once. You know, hundreds and hundreds of podcasts, real world monetization. Bob, thank you so much for being here. This has just been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
I enjoyed it. Blessings.